Welcome to Empowered Life Hacks, where we share with you an explosion of tips to help you overcome your daily struggles. Pay attention for the audio and visual cues, and this will let you know when an actionable idea is right on its way.
Hey everyone, welcome to Empowered Life Hacks. I have someone I know quite well named Jason Lee.
How you doing?
Thanks for joining me. I've been kind of pestering him slowly to come on the show, and he's been being very patient with me and finally been able to get a little spot here. And we're going to talk about something very impactful today. We had Rajiv talk about how to cultivate purpose, how to find your why. But often we don't look at our challenges as a place to source that purpose. And Jason told me a story. I've seen his TED Talk, and I wanted to dig deeper into how he was able to go through some of the challenges he had as a child and make that a career, a profession that he's helping me out with today too, with my own little personal things on the side. So Jason, I'd love to hear about just your start with your initial challenge and maybe talk about some of the challenges you had as a young boy.
Yeah, I guess, the biggest challenge I had was I was a child of the 70s, right? So being a child of the 70s means that, I was born, they didn't really care too much about breastfeeding. In fact, I think my mom was talked out of it because they said, well, there's no point in breastfeeding your child. We have formula, which is far better anyway. My mom switched over to formula, and of course I was sensitive to dairy and developed really bad eczema. And it got worse and worse and worse with time. In fact, it got so bad that they ended up giving me steroids for it, which made it worse. It healed in some areas, but then got worse in other areas. So I was pretty bad. I lost a lot of my hair. I had no eyebrows. It was very difficult. As a child, it was tough because obviously kids don't want to play with you when you're like that. And my mom was also kind of ashamed the way I looked as well. The doctors kept saying it's not, anything it's just a genetic thing. It's just the way it is, and to give more steroids. So I was under a lot of care from doctors, but I wasn't really seeing results. As I got a bit older, it started to become really tough for me to deal with. Right? I was being teased a lot at school. It just became really difficult. I didn't understand why I had it. Most doctors could not provide answers. One doctor told me it was just bad luck. And I didn't see any other kid that seemed to have it. So I was picked on a lot. It was really difficult. And I actually hated it. I remember telling my mom one day, I said, why am I even on this planet? Why am I here? My mom, I think she felt tremendous guilt from it, and she didn't really want to deal with it. It was very difficult for her. My dad was sort of well, this is the way that life is. We just have to manage it somehow. And it really got me down. It really did. But out of the grace of luck and whatnot, I was able to find a naturopath when I was about 11 or 12, and they did some great work and helped me deal with the eczema, and also teach me that eczema was not really a skin problem, but something from inside. So with their protocols and whatnot, the eczema was able to resolve itself. And then, it was a remarkable day. But instead of getting really happy about it, I actually got kind of upset, because I'm like, you mean I could have dealt with this earlier and didn't have to go through all that stuff? What's going on, kind of thing. So anyway, it allowed me to actually decide on what I wanted to do with my life, and that was to become a naturopathic doctor. And I'm grateful for it. And actually, when I look back, if it wasn't for the eczema, I probably would not be in the profession that I'm in now, which I love. So I actually owe it all to eczema, as strange as it sounds. And as difficult as a child as it was, it turned out to be one of the best things that ever happened to me. I can say this now after the fact, but at the time it's really difficult. But right now I wouldn't trade it for the world. I wouldn't change anything that happened either. And I'm grateful for that issue.
Super interesting to see how something that's so negative at first can become something you look back on and laugh at. It's a very weird phenomenon. And anyways, but at Powered Life Hacks, a big thing is life hack tips. And when I heard Jason's story, there was so much to dig into, so many things he did that are minute at the surface level. But if someone were to gain his mindset or his practices, can really enhance them through those tough times till they cultivate that feeling of passion or purpose. So Jason, I recall you saying at the time you're a child, you're being bullied at school, you're having problems at home. What was something that tied you over that whole time period where you did not see that natural path? What carried you through those hard times?
It was really difficult. I didn't have any friends until I was probably in grade 6 or 7. And it was difficult. I mean, what helped me through it, which sounds a bit strange, was I really got addicted to Lego. Like Lego was a thing for me. It's a solitary thing you can do on your own. I just got in and was just very creative that way. I was always creative. So while I couldn't play sports, I couldn't really run, I couldn't go outside. I was allergic to like sun and grass and trees and cold and damp and everything. So basically, it was just me and this toy Lego, which basically was one of the greatest things that ever happened to me. So that helped me out a lot. And I was able to hone my creative energy into doing that. I drew a lot. I used to paint a lot. Those were things that helped me out. It was almost meditative, I guess, for me. I didn't realize at the time, but doing it was kind of almost like meditative because it allowed me to take my mind off things and deal with a lot of my stresses. So, I mean, yeah, that was one of the biggest things that helped me out.
That's actually kind of cool because when I look at what you do today, Jason, you have a very creative component. What you do is as much a science as it is an art. So do you see the parallels, I guess, growing up, being a little artistic, playing with Lego? Do you see that having like a reasonable influence perhaps on the way you view your patients and how you help them today?
I mean, I guess to a certain degree, yes. I mean, I always, when I was growing up, I always used to see things I wanted to draw or build, and I would try and, like, I guess you could say, dismantle it in my head and try and build it myself. I made like miniature things of things that I saw in real life that I really liked. And I guess with cases, it's kind of like that too. Like when a patient comes in with a case, what you're doing is you're deconstructing their case and reverse engineering it. So you're taking it backwards to see where everything began. I mean, the key with natural medicine is to treat the root cause of the issue as to why it happened. It's not the symptom itself. So, for example, eczema is not really a skin condition. It actually has deeper roots that reside within the bowel or other kinds of areas. So when you're dealing with patients, you're seeing the finished product, which is the eczema. But what you need to do is find out where that eczema came from. So it requires some investigational work, but you're almost like deconstructing. And with the kind of testing that we do in the office, we're just taking layers off to try and find out where that root issue comes from to get down to that. So yeah, I guess there's part of that. There's a part of creativity in there. There's a part of analysis. There's a part of patience as well. I mean, with all health conditions, as you know, they don't move fast to a certain degree. So we're not here to deal with symptom management. We're here to deal with root issues, and that requires time. So eczema, if it did teach me anything, it did teach me a lot of patience, and that's something that I still need to learn more about. But it's just one of those things that helped me out.
It's really neat. Like you had this very analytical mind, and naturally, almost you were prone to already deconstruct things using Lego. And then you use something like root cause, I'm sure at the time, to keep trying to figure out an answer even before you had the doctors come to you. So now you figured out the answer, right? You're like, okay, I have eczema. This is what I have to do. I'm healthy now. But now you're you today, right? You have your practice, but at some point there was that in-between period, right? Like where you were that kid that got cured and then to where you are today. And I'd really like to hear how you just had that energy in you building towards focusing on this thing that you do today.
That's a good question. I mean, in practice, I get very intense about things. Like I'm very like passionate. I guess sometimes it comes across as being intense. Some people are like, "Oh, this guy's really passionate about what he does." I do because I mean, I suffered for so long with eczema, and all I really wanted was someone to sit down and say, "You know, Jason, this is why you have eczema. This is where it comes from. This is how we're going to deal with it." But that was never really the case. It was always like, you know, you have this skin condition, we don't know where it comes from, it's genetic or it's just, you know, bad luck, and take this cream and it'll make it all go away. And there was no education, there's no learning, there's no empowerment. I mean, you know, the most important thing about medicine is actually not giving something to somebody, it's empowering them to make changes in their life so that they can make the steps needed to help themselves, right? I guess it's sort of like accountability. When you're accountable, you have to be educated, and when you get educated, you understand and you become accountable to your health. So that's the big part of the practice is teaching, and that's one of the parts I love the most. I mean, the word doctor comes from the word "chattere," which means to teach, not to heal. I'm not a healer. I never will be. I mean, I wish I was, but I'm not. I'm just a teacher. My job is to teach patients on what to do, why they feel the way they feel, why they have what they have, pinpoint that, and then fix it at the root issue. So, I mean, I'm just a teacher like any other teacher that teaches people, just helping them understand. I was taught things myself too. So, you know, And one of the greatest things that happens in practice, and one of my mentors told me this a long time ago when I started practicing. He said, Jason, your patients will be your greatest teachers. And he's right, because they have been my greatest teachers. I learned the most from my patients, what they go through, their life experiences, things like that. I mean, I've been on this planet for 43 years. It's been a great ride, but I mean, I find I learn a lot more by honing the experience and things my patients have gone through. Every patient has a story. Every patient has a history. It's not just like, they're not their eczema. There's a story behind that. There's a person that has eczema, right? Not eczema. The eczema never walked in my office. It was always attached to somebody, right? You know, Crohn's disease never walked into my office either. It's always attached to somebody. It's the somebody that's the most important thing. It's not the condition, but the person who has it that you have to focus on. So, I mean, I think, yeah, that's just one of those things.
It's really cool that you drew it a parallel to bringing it back to humanity, because it's like, because what I'm trying to get from this conversation with you to give to others is like, how did you grab that challenge and make it something that now you can multiply the benefits you receive from overcoming it manyfold? And your ability to be empathetic and compassion almost is like, I feel like it probably drove you on towards now helping more and more people just like yourself. Like, that's potentially your purpose, your why. Is that fair assessment?
I mean, I think the reason why I have that compassion, it's not like I think I was just born with this. I think it's honestly been cultivated because of the suffering I had to go through with the eczema. Like, I understand now what it's like to have a chronic ailment, and to know what it feels like to I guess wonder if it's ever going to go away. You know, the feeling of loneliness, that you're the only person that has it, that no one understands, and just the pain of having it. So when patients come in with particular issues, I can understand that more and be more empathetic to them. It makes me a better person, I think. Eczema basically made me a better person. I don't know if I would have been this way had I not had eczema. I'm grateful for it. I think that was the one thing that was the best, because I was angry about it for years. I hated eczema. Like, I hated the term eczema. I hated looking at the skin. I hated talking about it. I just hated it, because to me, eczema was the worst thing that ever happened to me. And now looking back, it was probably the greatest thing that ever happened, and the greatest teaching tool I could have ever had. I'm a pretty stubborn person. I mean, eczema really beat that down out of me, which is good. I think I needed it in all honesty. So I think that's what gives me a lot of drive, is that I can know that if people can understand why their health conditions are there, they can feel better too. And I know that they have the keys to help themselves. They just don't know it yet. I mean, in life, you know what you know what you don't know, but you don't know what you don't know. And I mean, that's the real important thing, is that I feel that if people knew certain things, they could really help themselves and not be reliant on somebody else. They don't need a drug. They don't need medication. They can do things on their own to help themselves feel better, that they have control. That illness is not something that happens to them, but something they have an active role in. And that I feel is my calling, I think. And that's because I had this eczema. If I didn't have that, I wouldn't understand that. You know, I might have been gone to a different school and then been prescribing steroids to people on a regular basis. I'm not too sure. I mean, not that steroids have a wrong place in medicine, because they are great at suppressing conditions and helping with inflammation, but they don't treat the cause of the issue, right? So, so yeah, I mean, I am grateful for the eczema. I never thought I'd say that, actually, but I am.
And this is a good lesson for all our viewers out there or listeners. It's like, you're looking at Jason now, like, beautiful skin. He has hair on his head. Like, this wasn't the truth for him at one point at all. And it's really cool to see that, because you went through that very same thing, now it's like you gave a model for people right now, Jason, whether you recognize it or not. You're showing people that if they pen down the challenge that they're experiencing vividly, and they're able to overcome that, they can get the satisfaction you're having now, build a practice to lift up other people out of the mud. Not only do you get the benefits, of course, Jason, of helping people, but you have a profession now, a career you can live in day out. And I think that is such a beautiful takeaway. Honestly, like, if there's anything people can take away from this episode, is pen down your challenges, overcome them, help someone else, and maybe build a career out of it. Now, I just want to touch into the educational point in your life, because wherever you're at in life, there's times where you will need to choose your career path or choose a new job. And
Mhm.
what you did is you were at the crossroads in your profession at one point. I may be wrong, but you had to choose a very niche, or you had to choose a particular niche in university, if you recall. I would love for you to tell people how you angled that out and kind of weaned it, kind of, you know what I mean, graded it down to what you're doing today.
Mhm. I mean, I knew from very young that I wanted to help people. And I love people, even though I was isolated for most of my childhood. I really do love people. So I knew I wanted to work with people, and medicine seemed to be a good match for that. But then it was the kind of medicine that I wanted to do. I mean, there's many kinds of ways to help people in the medical field. But because of my experience in natural medicine, it just made it a no-brainer that that would be the route that I would go. So I spent most of my time honing my electives and my courses going down that field. But at the same time, I didn't want to put all my eggs in one basket. So I did apply to other schools and other kinds of things. But I knew deep down inside that was where I wanted to go, is natural medicine, which turned out to be great, you know. Um, as far as the drive to get there, I mean, I think it's just once you have that vision of what you want to do, it makes it easier to follow through the steps to get there. I mean, that was one thing I was very lucky as I knew what I wanted to do from a very early age because of my experiences. But I mean, I have a lot of friends who are doing jobs now that are not in the field that they graduated in, because the reality is that, again, you know what you don't know, but you don't know what you don't know. And in life, you have to experience certain things. So a lot of my colleagues and friends, I mean, they found their path just through doing things that they like, because everything leads to another step, and that step leads to another step. So sometimes you don't even need to know where it's going to end. You just have to do the next right step, which is whatever feels right at the time. um, and that can be the path you choose. Like I said, I have colleagues that are doing things in totally different fields that they just stumbled into. And it appears like they stumbled into it, but they really didn't, because they just kept following things they enjoyed, and eventually they led them to where they are at today. But looking even back at the naturopathic medical school that I went to, I would say a good half or more of the people in that program, they themselves suffered with health issues that were helped through naturopathic medicine. In my practice now, I've been practicing for 16 years. I've had 12 students graduate the program, 12 patients of mine who I've written reference letters for, who have now gone through the program and are now practicing as naturopathic doctors, because they themselves have experienced what it's like to feel better through the profession. So that's kind of cool.
Yeah, and you're very sincere with your passion. When you leverage your challenge or something you've been through, it's easier to cultivate that willingness to wake up in the morning. For example, if you're going into a field and you just see a business idea, you have to sell people on a lot of different things. You have to go do research, you may have to find stats, right? But when you've experienced it, your story is so much believable, way more believable. And I think it's really neat what you mentioned about being able to help people and mentor them. Now, from a mentorship standpoint, you overcame a challenge, right, Jason? And then you have your practice, and now you're lifting people out and helping them move on to bigger and greater things. How do you mentor? I'm just curious, like how do you inspire them and guide them without being like too overbearing and let them figure out on its own? Because it's a bit of a side tangent, but I think anyone that's going to follow your path, Jason, is going to get to that point where they're like, I overcame my challenge. I need to help people. Like, what's your style and how do you influence people effectively is basically what I'm trying to ask.
Yeah, that's a good point. I mean, it's a tough question to answer because we don't really take a lot of mentorship in the office, just because the visits are personal for patients. We don't really have people sitting in on them and stuff like that. But
Hmm.
any one of my patients, or whoever who has emailed me that has interest in the profession, I'll definitely sit down with them and chat with them about it. If they have any questions, they can always bounce it off me, and different ideas. I mean, the cool thing about natural medicine is that there's many different practitioners for many kinds of patients. Not every patient fits best with every practitioner, so there's always room for more people. My style may not fit well with many people, or may fit well with lots of people, but there's lots of other doctors out there that are fantastic for those patients, right? So the key is just finding a good fit. Every time I come to work, I'm like, please, I mean, send me the patients that were meant to come to me, that are going to get help, and the ones that aren't going to get help from me, I hope they see somebody else, you know. But as far as mentorship goes, I mean, I don't mind sitting down with people and chatting with them about it. I want to hear their ideas. I want to hear what brought them to the profession, and we discuss things. I mean, that's the best thing. But as far as an actual mentorship program within the clinic, we don't have that yet.
There's so many tidbits. I don't know if you're aware of it, Jason, but listening throughout, you really dropped like a methodology for people to find their passion through assessing their challenges. But you also talked about ways to look at people, right? Digging deeper, not looking at the surface level problems people go through. And now what you did is you actually shown people how to lead through and how to mentor, because all you really said right there, Jason, was like, you're just inquisitive. You ask about them, how they're doing, what they're feeling, what they're experiencing, where they want to go. And you may not have the exact answer, but I think just you being there for them helps you both find the idea without you telling them what to do. For example, you could easily be like, I'm Jason, I've been doing this for 30 years. This is what you should be doing, for example. But that's not what you said at all.
Story, right? I mean, I do tell them what I think they should do, but everybody has a story. And unlocking that story is really important because a story is part of what makes the person who they are, right? Like I said, it's not like heart disease never walked in my office. It was always attached to somebody. That somebody is the real gist of medicine, I think. And we tend to lose that. Patients become numbers, they become labeled as pathologies, like, you know, patient X with these conditions, patient Y with these conditions. I mean, yeah, there's conditions and they're important to look at, but the person is the most important thing to look at because that's the one who has the condition, right? They're the one that has to make the changes. They're the one who has to do the work. With medicine, sometimes there's a disempowerment in a sense because it says, well, don't do anything. Just take this medication, your symptom will go away. But that only buys some time, unfortunately, for a lot of cases. So we need to figure out more. People can do more for themselves. They just need to know it. You know, and that's the part I love most about the practice. I guess it's just the conversations I have with patients. You get to really know them as people. And then at the same time, you can help them understand what makes them tick, what is about themselves that has the condition, and start treating the condition almost as a secondary thing, right? So, and again, I owe a lot of this to my upbringing with eczema because I think that taught me a lot. It taught me a lot. The times when I was most alone is when I really got to learn about myself and about what makes me tick and, you know, why I act the way I act and why I'm the way I am. And that part of me it's still there. Like I'm still always trying to figure that out. Even for myself, I still attend, you know, self-help type things. And I'm always learning about that. And it just helps me to help other patients. But everybody's a story. And it's the most enjoyable part about the visit is learning that story. Yeah.
I like watching the parallels between various concepts and ideas. And Jason, I just have to say, like, I basically embark in this environment, health, and safety journey when I joined an environment, health, and safety company. And when I look at how to work within an organization and the mindset you have and the mindset required to enhance human performance and safety and operational excellence, it's so funny because you're applying this to the single human, right? But people apply that exact same mindset. I swear, if I were to show you some of this stuff on an organizational level, and everyone, it just goes to show a lot of these concepts transcend being a naturopath. It transcends Lego. It's about how you can apply the principles and ideas to exactly what you're going through today. And Jason said it a bunch, like eczema. He's grateful for eczema. It was a pleasure to deal with at this point based on where he is. So whatever you're going through, just know that that can be a source of inspiration and joy when you overcome what you're doing. And it can also be a practice one day. And Jason, do you have any closing thoughts for anyone going through a challenge and feels aimless in life and they're just like trying to figure it out?
I mean, I don't have any great advice, but just my best advice, if I could give any, is to just be patient and have faith in the process. I mean, there's a reason why people suffer. People don't suffer because the universe wants you to suffer. People suffer because the universe wants you to change. People, they want you to learn and grow. You don't build a muscle by sitting there and not lifting any weight. You have to lift the weight. When you lift the weight, you put pressure and resistance on the muscle to allow it to grow. The body can't grow. You can't grow personally without resistance. You need resistance to do it. And when you're suffering, that's the best time because it's you're at the gym and you're lifting the weight. You're actually giving resistance to that muscle so it gets stronger. When you have a challenge, there's resistance. So the key is to know that you got to do the work, and then what comes out of the work is the reward in the end. and it will come. There's always a reason why these things happen. And we may not know why at the time. In fact, we never know why at the time. In fact, we question why it's even happening to us and what we did to deserve this, and why did the universe pick me and why not somebody else? Like why was it my journey to go through? But later on, you'll realize that that was all part of a purpose for something else, you know? And I've witnessed that happen in my life a few times, quite a few times. So it gives you faith in the future. Like you start trusting the future as opposed to being afraid of it. You start to trust it, meaning, okay, I got the challenge right now, but something great's going to come out of that, and you just roll with it. So, I mean, that's the best advice I can give. I don't know if it's the best advice, but that's the best advice I can give, given what I've gone through.
Beauty, surrender, right? Just surrender the outcome. Put in the work.
I mean,
Push
one of
through.
the poses in yoga is called the corpse pose, where you're basically just lying there. Right? I mean, going with the flow of things. I mean, I think I spent a lot of my childhood fighting the flow, trying to push the water back on the beach, thinking if I just pushed it faster, the water would somehow go the opposite way, but the water just comes around you anyway. I mean, part is just going with the flow of things and realizing that the challenges we have in our life are there for a reason, to give resistance to your life, to allow you to grow to be a better person later on. I mean, and if you look back at your life in many ways, I'm sure we've all had little resistances or bigger resistances, but they make you better. And patients have gone through that too. I've seen that with tons of patients. Like some patients, one of my patients said a line to me that I'll never forget. He came in and he was not well. He had a very horrible lifestyle. He actually did not even want to come and see me. His wife dragged him in to see me, and he sat there in the seat and sulked like a kid as I was telling him what to do and why he should do it. And I knew he just didn't want to listen to me, but something in him made him come back. Maybe it was his wife, I'm not too sure, but he came back and slowly started following the steps that we talked about. And him and I became pretty close. Like we chatted a lot. And one day, you know, I got him exercising, which he never thought he'd do. And he made a bet with me. He said, one day, you know, I'm gonna run a race and I want you to run it with me, right? And I said, sure, you pick a race. Like I was a runner. I said, you pick a race and I'll do it with you. So he did the Oakville 5K. And I said, I'll stop and do it with you. So we ran it together. This is like quite a while ago. And we were running and he said something interesting to me. He said, you know, it's interesting. You know, I'm like, what? He goes, when people do what you say, they actually feel better. I'm like, yeah. And he's like, you know, because it made me realize that, you know, smoking, drinking, not taking care of myself was a bad thing. I had to go through a catastrophic event. He had a heart attack to allow me to realize that. He had a heart attack. He was 39. You know,
Damn, that's early.
And his father didn't live past 50. So, I mean, you know, I said that the odds aren't good here. We have to make some changes. And he was actually pissed to be with me initially, but he realized over time that that was what he needed. He said having a heart attack saved his life. And that was one line I'll never forget. You know, it was great. He's lost so much weight. He's a runner now. He looks fantastic. He's just a different man. And the heart attack literally saved his life. So, I mean, you know, it doesn't get better than that. You know.
Really doesn't. I think, Jason, thank you so much for that. And we'll leave it with that, folks. He gave so many examples of how your challenge can really become your purpose, your drive. And I'll put some actionable takeaways from this to make it more digestible if you can't watch all this or want to send them to a friend. Jason, I appreciate you so much. Looking forward to staying in touch with you. And yeah, thanks for coming on.
Yeah, thank you for having me. Appreciate it.
Cheers. Bye.
Take care.
Everyone, thanks so much for just checking out that episode. I mean, think about how far we came. Episode 7, right? Coming from trying to overcome instant gratification and trying to make these boring things more fun, to finding your purpose, to then just digging into things that suck as you're trying to find your purpose, onto leveraging that crappy inertia and smacking it in its face and developing a real sustained passion, I guess you can say, or purpose, but using your challenges, right? Because you can find passion and purpose through things you like, but there's always going to be those things that suck in your life that you may avoid. Why not see if there's something that you can make out of a career, a life, a community in there, so you can excel way farther than beyond you could have ever imagined by the time you go make that business, you go on that journey, go develop your personal brand.
you'll have so much experience dealing with your own challenge that you'll be so knowledgeable, even before any real education, just through experience. And we have Reggie Waterman talking just about that in our next episode, how to develop your fingerprint, your vision, and your personal brand. And it'll tie together everything quite nicely. We'll be going on paths of mentorship, of finding good partners in your life to come after these episodes. So I appreciate y'all. Thanks so much for checking me out. Peace. Have a good one.